Check. Great. Just check. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. As Hank said, my name is Jonathan Laguerre. I am a data science practice leader at Fidelity Investments, and I will be speaking about career opportunities for graduate students in statistics and data science. So Fidelity Investments is, just to get some context, is a privately held financial services company. And our mission at Fidelity is to strengthen the financial well-being of our clients. We help people invest. We help people plan for their future. We help companies and organizations deliver benefits to their employers. We provide institutions with solutions so they can help their own customers. And to do this, we provide exceptional service and innovative solutions. So Fidelity is a financial services company. It's a leading financial services company. It's also kind of a technology company. We have over 12,000 technology experts around the world at Fidelity. It's probably higher than this today. Every year, Fidelity invests about $2.5 billion into technology platforms. And these investments in technology span areas like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, cybersecurity, statistics, data science, data engineering, many, many, many more. And the work that these 12,000 plus technologists do, at the end of the day, it helps Fidelity deliver financial services to our customers. Now, we at Fidelity are always seeking talented individuals who are passionate about data, who are passionate about helping real people live the lives that they want. And let me spend a little bit of time talking today about our internship program first, and also I'll talk about full-time opportunities as well. So Fidelity invests a lot into its internship program. Each year, we hire roughly 1,000 interns to join us for the summer. And the primary goal of us at Fidelity with 1,000 plus interns is to convert them all into full-time employees. The internships are paid. There are two types of internships. The most common one is the summer internship, but we also partner with some universities around the country to offer 6-month cooperative internships as well. In my experience, the interns, they have a fantastic time. They get to enjoy a rich technical experience. They get to learn and apply new techniques. They get to work in a team environment. They get to work with other data scientists, with technical experts, with architects, with senior leaders. And of course, they get to meet and work with other interns too. It really, truly is an immersive experience. And our internship program is designed from the ground up to provide students with opportunities to connect, to learn, to grow. So we offer interns career development opportunities. There are summer events. There's networking opportunities. There's also longer-term career opportunities, of course, too. It's really a great program. Every intern I've worked with at Fidelity over the years, they've really enjoyed it. And many of them are now my colleagues. They've become full-time employees at Fidelity. For full-time employees, it's everything that I just said about the intern program and much, much more. It's like this seemingly never-ending adventure of challenges and meaningful technology projects that push you to continuously learn and to apply new skills. So some of the cool things are like access to professional development opportunities. We have these things called learning days every 2 weeks. We have training resources. We have conferences that we can participate in, mentorship programs. Fidelity, being such a large company, has this great career mobility. A lot of the folks that I worked with, 15 plus years ago, the ones that are still at Fidelity, a lot of them are doing something different, something new, something that they found more challenging, perhaps. So you could start a career at Fidelity as a data scientist, and then grow into possibly a more senior data scientist. You could continue in data science, or you might find out along the way that you also have a great interest in something else, like systems or data architecture, or working directly with our customers in sales, or relationship management, or managing teams. It's really a great place to invest in your career. So that's kind of a broad overview of Fidelity's internship program and some of the, benefits, of course, of investing your career here. But I want to spend some time talking more about careers in data science. So over the past few years, I've worked directly with several graduate students, mainly through internships, but also, of course, through recent hires. A lot of the interns, like I said, become full-time employees here. And they come from a variety of fields: statistics, data science, computer science, computational linguistics, business analytics, other fields like that. And these associates, they get to work directly on data science and artificial intelligence team that I'm on. They've gotten to use a large variety of methods, inside of statistics, but also outside of statistics from other fields. I'll talk more about that later. Let me just give you a sampling of some of the methods that we're using. So, of course, we have predictive models. We use predictive models to help identify prospective customers, new customers, to recommend benefit solutions to existing customers. The predictive models could be, simpler models like generalized linear models like logistic and multilinear regression. They could be tree-based models like random forest and gradient boosted decision trees. We also use SVM support vector machines, naive Bayes, ridge regression, a whole bunch of methods in this space. We also are employing neural networks. We use neural network architectures for classification, for object detection, for time series forecasting. One of our interns a couple of years ago trained a multi-layer perceptron model for detecting anomalies. One of my favorite areas is natural language processing. This includes a whole giant breadth of techniques like knowledge graph, entity recognition, QA question answering systems, fuzzy matching, search engines, sentiment analysis. Like, it's a huge list of things in this area. One of the areas that I like a lot is chatbots. This is a screenshot I took a couple of years ago. It's Fidelity's virtual assistant, or at least it was 2 years ago. You can check it out on fidelity.com. I'm sure it's way better than it was 2 years ago today. At the time, I was actually online because I'm a customer at Fidelity too. I work there, but I'm a customer. I was just trying to find something for myself. And I was asking this chatbot, but I learned that I wasn't asking it the right question. I thought I was looking for X, but I was actually looking for Y. It helped me find Y. So I think this technology is really powerful. It helps our customers, get the answers that they're looking for without having to know exactly where to go on a website. And in a lot of cases, without having to know exactly the right search terms to look for. I've worked on these at Fidelity in the past. I think they're really powerful, and I use them. I think they're great. We also do things with advanced experimental designs. So like some of the methods used in clinical trials. So Bayesian adaptive designs, group sequential designs. My favorite is one called multi-arm, multi-stage designs, MAMS. These designs are really powerful, and they're powerful because the treatment arms can be stopped early. If they're found to be effective, you find a drug you found it's effective, you don't have to do the whole experiment for like a whole year or anything like that. You can stop it early. Or likewise, if you find a drug or a product that's ineffective, futile, you can stop early. And in this way, we save sample size, we save time. And in the business world, that can mean failing fast and cheap, so that we can move on to another idea, try something else out, or we could get a successful product to the market, to our customers, faster. Anyway, we apply these advanced experimental designs to business experiments. Explainable AI. This is another really cool area. It's been growing over the last few years. We use explainable AI extensively now to help ourselves as data scientists and statisticians, and to also help our fellow associates, our business colleagues, if you will, to understand the model predictions and to justify business decisions that are made from those predictions. So like we use methods that you've probably heard of, these SHAP and LIME, to help explain existing black box models like random forest or neural networks. And then we're applying these, what we call glass box models, which are designed for interpretability. glass box models, like some of the things you're probably familiar with, linear models, decision trees, those are glass box models. But there's also newer ones called generalized additive models, like explainable Bayesian machines. And our team uses these tools, the explainable AI and fairness tools, to produce our models, to produce models that are fair, that are equitable, that are ethical. So a couple of my colleagues a couple of years ago were studying biases of some of the popular language models, which you'd be surprised that they have biases built in them. Surprise, surprise, right? And then we also use techniques to produce models that our business partners can use that they can, so they can interpret the results, so they can understand the results and the predictions, and very importantly, so they can trust the results before they take action. And we also do multivariate time series forecasting and really a lot more than that. This is just a sample of the methods. It's a growing space. It's exciting. There's always something new, so it's hard to create slides for everything. And then about the experience, the data scientists, they work in teams at Fidelity. Every intern, every regular employee, every contingent contractor, everybody is part of multiple teams at Fidelity. First, they're part of multidisciplinary agile teams where data scientists and statisticians get to work with other data scientists and other statisticians, other developers, architects, business leaders. And these teams, these multidisciplinary teams, they work together to build new products or design new capabilities, build new capabilities that at the end of the day help our customers. Data scientists and statisticians, if you will, they're also part of our bigger, what we call our bigger data science family, our center of excellence, where we work with other data scientists and other statisticians to develop skills, to share best practices, to get second and third opinions on the models that we're building, to perform cutting edge research. Our teams, both the agile multidisciplinary agile teams and the data science family, the center of excellence, we're global. We use agile methodologies. We use the latest collaboration tools. And the interesting thing, I think, is while Fidelity is indeed a large company, the technologists, the technology teams that we work in, it's kind of like working at a startup. It's really flexible. It's agile. I guess the main difference is it doesn't have the startup risk, which is really cool. Fidelity also has employee resource groups, volunteer opportunities. So there's there's your working teams, but then there's a lot of other teams that you kind of develop over your experience as an employee. Data scientists also get to present their work, interns included. They present their work to teammates. They present their work to the data science community, to senior managers, to leaders, to business stakeholders. Sometimes we present at industry and academic conferences. There are also ample opportunities to present. Anyway, there are plenty of ample opportunities to present, but as part of that, we invest in our skills as presenters. We help build strong storytelling skills and be able to tell our message as well. Research is another area we do. So data scientists could be studying cutting edge methods, either in published literature or by attending conferences, and then bringing those back and applying those cutting edge methods to business problems. It could also mean developing new methods. We do that too, contributing to publications, filing patents. Anyway, those are some of the things that data scientists do. Let me just talk for a minute or two about the things that we're looking for. For the data science internships, let me start with that. We're seeking students who are working on their master's or their PhD in data science, statistics, computer science, operations research, related fields, econometrics, biostatistics, bioinformatics. I'd say that's also true for full-time associates, full-time positions. The difference, of course, is like for some of the more senior positions, we're looking for commensurate experience. We're looking for strong programming skills, It could be any language. We primarily program today in Python and R and SQL in the data science world. I mean, knowledge of machine learning, of course, advanced analytic methods, many of the ones I mentioned earlier, but other methods too, like unsupervised learning or dimensionality reduction, or reinforcement learning, recommender system. It doesn't have to be on the list here. I'm just trying to, this is just a representative idea, I guess. Another big area, of course, is natural language processing. Again, like I said, many of the methods I mentioned earlier, but it could be something else like web scraping or documents extraction. That's a big area right now. Text summarization, semantic matching. Any of these things, we're using them. And I think the other thing I would mention, which isn't on the page here and probably wouldn't be on the job requirements list, is I just want to say we very strongly value diversity in our backgrounds and skill sets. Some of our data scientists come from areas outside of statistics and data science, like astronomy or medical physics. One of my early mentors at Fidelity, he was a geologist, and earlier in his career, of course. And he borrowed concepts from geology, like stratigraphy, the study of rock layers. Like if you go to the Grand Canyon and look at the size of the canyons, you can see the different layers of the rocks. He took concepts like that and he brought those into his data visualizations, and it helped him improve his ability to still effectively tell stories to business leaders. Anyway, before I end my presentation here, I just want to share one last thing. A long time ago, I started my career at Fidelity. I was an intern. It was during my senior year at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. This is actually my original ID card. This is a photo of me from like 20-something years ago. And when I think back to my time as an intern at Fidelity, for me, it was life-changing. I mean, I learned new skills, of course. I learned a new industry, the financial services industry. I had and still have supportive mentors. I made and still am making lifelong friends. In that short period where I was an intern, I felt like I made a real difference in real people's lives. And it was such a rewarding internship for me that I decided to invest my own career with Fidelity. And I have to say, after nearly 20 years, that was one of the best decisions I've made in my whole life. And speaking to you as a data scientist and a statistician, I would strongly, strongly encourage you to consider Fidelity as a career destination for yourselves. Anyway, if you want to learn more about our internship programs or some of the full-time positions available, please check out Fidelity's career portal. It's jobs.fidelity.com. You can also, on that portal, search for terms like statistics and analytics and data science and see what kinds of roles that might not have those in the title, but require those skills. And as usual, I'll just say, if you go there today, be mindful that jobs are always being added. Fidelity is a big company. We're always adding jobs. So if you don't see exactly what you're looking for today, you can try again in a couple of weeks or a couple months. It'll be different. There'll be new stuff there. And I strongly encourage you to check it out. And I hope that my presentation today has been insightful for you. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That was a very lovely talk. I love the diversity at Fidelity, and because somebody like me, I'm from my biostats background, which I mainly am in going forward to biostat positions, but now I have the hope that I can like blend it into those areas like that. We have a questions in the Q&A sessions. You can answer in the by tapping to or answer later. But we can move on to the next speaker, Dr. Tim Hesterberg. He's currently works as a staff data scientist at Instacart. He previously worked at many big companies, but not limited to, such as Google. He received his PhD in statistics from Stanford University. He's the author of the Resemble package for R, and wrote book and published a lot of work on resampling. He's also on the executive board of the Canadian Statistical Science Institute and the executive committee of the NIST, and helped write with the ASA guidelines for undergrad statistics programs. And beside all that, he teach kids to make water bottle rockets and fight climate chaos. Please welcome Dr. Hesterberg.
Thank you, Han. I also teach kids to make kerosene torches and make a raft and set the raft on fire. So I'll talk about data science at Instacart. So what is Instacart? We do grocery delivery, and we're the leader in this space. And it's a complicated space that we are in. We have what we call a four-sided marketplace. We have the customers, people who place the order. They want food delivered to their home. We have these shoppers, the gig workers, mostly gig workers, who go to the stores, shop the customer's order, and deliver it to the homes. We have the retailers that we work with who put their catalog, we work with them to get their catalog into our online systems. And then we have the different brands that advertise with us. So this four-sided marketplace makes for a complicated company, for a company our size, and that leads to interesting problems for data scientists. So for the customer's point of view, they pick a store that they want to order from, or they just search for what they're interested in, flowers, bananas, and we will show local stores. And then they go through the process of selecting items, going through checkout, et cetera, and it will be delivered to their homes. For shoppers, they go onto the app, we show batches that are available, and they pick a batch, they go shop the batch and deliver to the home. We like to group together customers' orders for efficiency into a couple orders that are going to a similar place. And then some of the retail partnerships that we have. In terms of data science, we've got roughly 94 data scientists, and we have been growing fast. Some of these pictures are actually from 2020, at which point there were 23 people. Variety of questions that we work on. So I mentioned that there's this four-sided marketplace that leads to interesting problems, complicated problems. We are always working to optimize things. We like to batch things together, they're delivered to them similar place. Well, how long do we wait when we get an order before offering it to shoppers as a single order, as opposed to waiting until we can batch it with other orders, is one example. Now, why Instacart? Number of reasons. One is we have a very experiment-driven culture. People believe in data at Instacart. And we have good data. I previously worked at Google, and Google's got a lot of data, but we don't actually have data on what people actually purchased. At Instacart, we have that. We have the data on when the customers came, what they looked at, what they searched for, what we showed them, what they selected. There's a lot of machine learning that goes into this. Side note, though, we have sort of a separate machine learning group, and I'm focusing on the data science as opposed to machine learning. But if you're interested in machine learning, there are opportunities there too. So we have good data. We use machine learning models to choose what search results we provide when people search for things, and good data then on improving those models. We know then what people ordered. We know how quickly our shoppers picked up orders, how quickly they delivered, how long it took them to shop in stores. There are complex, interesting problems. Seems like I've mentioned that before. One big problem for us is that not everything that stores have on their inventory list is actually in the store. So then we have questions about, we estimate how likely different items are to actually be in the store, and we have to decide which items we show to the customers. If we show them something that's not actually there, that's a frustrating experience. well, then the shoppers will suggest replacements, or we suggest replacements. Instacart is what I'll call the Goldilocks size company. It's still a startup, but it's a relatively large startup. So it's not a new startup where everybody's working so hard and patching things together and nothing works right and you're just trying to get anything to work. We've got systems, pretty good systems, but there's still room to improve them. And we've taken the first pass at problems, but there's a lot of room for improvement. Company with good benefits, good pay, but we're still getting the good stock options that can be worth a lot when the company goes public. It's the right size company in terms of your career. It's not a startup where there's nobody for you to learn from. We've got a good mix of relatively new people and somewhat more experienced people. And it's not an older company, really huge, where everything's been done before and you're just looking for minor improvements on what's been done before. It's large enough that we offer some training programs. I'm involved in some of these training programs on experimentation, on resampling, on telling stories with data, how to present, training on career growth. And I'll call it the right age too, a mature startup. Furthermore, I like the culture at Instacart. Now, I was at Google before, and back to this right size company, I started when Google was much smaller and there were more interesting problems then. But the last 2-3 years I was at Google, the work was just not interesting anymore. Furthermore, early on, Google had a nice open culture and values that I believed in. That culture became less open, the values sort of declined. I wasn't as happy there anymore. I'm happy again at Instacart. We've got a diverse workplace. We've got a lot of women. Our CEO is a woman. My VP is a woman. 3 of the 6 people under her are women. Well, we've got a good gender balance. We've also got a good work-life balance. So it's not a new startup. It's not a place where you're gonna burn out quickly. The company is growing and there's a huge market potential because people need groceries. And we grew immensely during COVID and we're still growing, even though COVID is sort of settled down. In terms of interviewing, the interviewing process is you apply online, you'll talk to a recruiter, then you'll go through a technical screen that involves problem solving, experimentation, and some SQL programming. You'll do a take-home data analysis, and then the on-site quote on-site interviews, which are done remotely now, would involve a review of that project, one on experimentation and statistics, a couple on problem solving, one focusing on analytics and one on product sense, and one on bar raiser, leadership, etc. And the criteria that we look for are technical, analysis, product sense, and leadership. I'll just mention, when I was at Google, there were also 4 primary criteria. They were basically statistics, data intuition, can you work with data and get something out of it, communication, and programming. And communication is going to be big at Instacart too. That goes into this leadership. It goes into we're working with teams and can you work well with your teams. And for more info, you can see this doc that's on my website, and I'll make sure that this link gets shared with you, which has links to the Instacart blog, the career site, more tips on interviewing, and more about why Instacart is a great place to work. I just want to mention a few additional things that weren't on the slides. One is that personally, I'm doing a lot of consulting with different people. I'm more senior and People with tough problems will come to me, and I'm able to talk them through the problem and figure out good approaches to take. I'm working on our experimental infrastructure, improving that. I'm doing some training. Got a couple of patent applications in process. Work is either remote, I work completely remotely, or you can work near an office. And people that are near the offices don't have to go in every day. They can, they don't have to. We do work in teams. The primary programming languages are SQL, R, and Python. And you can also check out my website for more about me, Google, other work that I've done. Another quick note is that there are currently not a lot of jobs listed. We've sort of frozen hiring, not completely, but unlike a lot of tech companies, we are not doing layoffs. Our market growth is such that we don't need to lay off. We're in a good position. And I will pass it on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tim Hesterberg. And our next speaker, our last speaker for today is Dr. Bonnie Ghosh-Dastida. She's the head of statistics group and a senior statistician at the RAND Corporations. Her projects and grants are primarily in health and well-being, including built intervention to improve mental health and adherence among HIV patients and population health. Her statistical expertise includes sampling, survey methods, evaluations, and mixing data, and longitudinal and multi-level data modeling. She was the statistician for 2 studies, receiving the RAND President's Choice Award in 2014 and 2015. And the ASA and the Committee on Women in Statistics celebrated her work in statistics and data science during the Women History Month in March 2019. She received her PhD and master degree in statistics from Penn State University and her bachelor in mathematics and computer science from Albright College. Please welcome Dr. Ghosh-Dastida.
You can just call me Bonnie. It was interesting. Hi, Tim and Jonathan. I thought it was such informative presentations. I think I took a slightly different, like more macro, big picture look. Maybe people don't know that much about RAND, but of course, people can follow up with me and do Q&A. It's nice to see some old friends, and thank you to NIST for this opportunity. So I think I'll take a little bit to talk about RAND because it's one of those organizations that people have heard of, but they're not exactly sure where they heard of RAND. And then talk a little bit about the statistics group and skill sets we are particularly looking for. Give me once. Okay. So just a few career highlights. I think I would be remiss if I didn't point out I did my PhD at Penn State, where Jim Rosenberger was the chair of my department. And I think I was at a point in my career search where I just wasn't finding what I was looking for. It can be hard to be a graduate student and find that job that inspires you. And as I talked through, I thought one person who really helped me was the chair of our department, who eventually said maybe a career in public policy was what would satisfy me. And sure enough, 25 years later, I'm still at RAND, and it's been really a good fit for me. So thanks for that. Today, I'm the head of the RAND Statistics Group. It's a small, tight-knit community. I work in public health prevention, and I do quite a bit of survey research since I've been at RAND. I've had some adjunct positions in demography and education at Princeton and Vanderbilt, and I am the incoming president-elect of the ASA, which is a real honor. And I'll be looking to connect with graduate students and early career investigators. I feel we need to serve their mission. Maybe better is a word. And we certainly need to serve all our members. The RAND Corporation is a nonprofit organization, often called a think tank. So what does that mean? That it means that it's a place where you kind of distill new ideas that can inform policymaking that is really in the form eventually of a law or a bill that's going to get passed. But where we are is, I would say, at much more the ground level. Our work is to inform policy and decision making through research and analysis. So we often collect data. We might use secondary data like Medicare, Medicaid, electronic health records. We would analyze that data extensively, often help the client generate the right questions, and in the end, provide that research and analysis in the form of briefings, sometimes as manuscripts, and emphasize a lot in dissemination. In terms of RAND's presence, it's global, but it is an American think tank. I would say the original think tank. So Santa Monica has always been the headquarters. Honestly, it's beautiful. It's right by the Santa Monica Pier, and that's where I started my career. Part of the reason was RAND was started as an offshoot of Project Air Force, and they were given a piece of land right by the ocean, and they started their research and analytics group there. And from that, it's grown to more like a 2,000 plus workforce. There is a presence in Washington, D.C. It's actually in Arlington right now, opposite the Pentagon. A lot of our clients are, frankly, in Washington, Congress, senators, Pentagon, Education, Department of Education. Pittsburgh is a more livable option and has a really friendly vibe to it. We are very close to Carnegie Mellon and University of Pittsburgh. And then there are some smaller offices scattered, like RAND Australia, for example, is one. We had an office in Qatar for a while, or Qatar, where we were advising on their education infrastructure. In terms of research agenda, it's really broad. It seems like there are just people working in so many different areas, starting from science and technology, workers and workplace, cyber data science. At the bottom is Homeland Security. We have actually a federally funded center in that now, such as improving sampling and searches by TSA, looking at shelters for immigrants, looking at different sort of different models of maybe relocation for immigrants, infrastructure, transportation. There are also quite a few political scientists, defense folks that work at RAND, and sometimes will cycle through RAND. They might be at the White House, they'll come to RAND and go back. Ultimately, the goal is to provide practical solutions to complex problems. In terms of disciplines, again, it's highly interdisciplinary. And the one thing I want to emphasize to you is if you were to come to RAND, you would invariably be embedded in an interdisciplinary team. So there's arts and letters, like humanities, social sciences. Towards the bottom, there's more physical sciences, statistics, OR, mathematics, international relations, engineering. Economics is a big one at RAND. There are many economists, computer science, and this may be changing a little bit. I try to update it every year, but this may be slightly outdated. You'll see that there's a heavy emphasis on doctorates. In my work, I do have a PhD. I would say it's been helpful where all of my work, sometimes people wonder where the funding comes from. We are a soft money environment, which has its own challenges. We can talk about it if you like. But my work is almost exclusively funded through National Institutes of Health grants, which means you need to come up in a research plan with original ideas, suggest sort of new approaches or new ways of looking at health problems. So the PhD has been helpful to me. But for a lot of the implementation and programming, I find having a master's can be very satisfying, lots of challenging problems. And RAND is growing in terms of its bachelor's and research assistants are what they're called. So this pie chart may again be shifting a little bit but we are doctorate heavy, as you can see. This is just some of the research products. We do a lot of reports. I do a lot of my work in terms of not just RAND reports, which are extensively peer-reviewed, but I do a lot of work in the manuscript world. So it feels to me like a medical school setup or pseudo-academic. Maybe a school of public health is what it feels like where I work. But you'll see that the range of topics varies. There's a lot of work being done around the policy setting for autonomous vehicles. There's one person in particular, Nidhi Kalra, an engineer, who's done a lot of work with the statistician Susan Paddock. But there's also a lot of work on aging, which is a big challenge for a lot of societies, improving dementia, long-term care. Our past CEO, we actually have a brand new CEO that we're really excited about, but Michael Rich, who is a lawyer and historian, our past CEO, has his initiative or set this up that's ongoing, which is called Truth Decade, thinking about how to counter misinformation in today's society, which is, as you know, a very large problem. We also have a graduate school which trains the next generation of policy analysts. It produces the largest number of PhDs in policy analysis. The curriculum will combine cutting-edge courses with on-the-job training at Rand. All of our graduate students have to do on-the-job training, like embedded in real teams and projects. So it's practical sort of work. It has 100 plus current students, 400 plus alumni, and then the graduates sort of get distributed across different settings. We also have a few method centers, and this one's often of interest to statisticians. It's the Center for Causal Inference. And the idea there, I mean, it is interdisciplinary. There are econometricians who are very interested in this, statisticians, many statisticians, data scientists. But the idea is of these method centers that were set up about 10 to 12 years ago was to try to do interdisciplinary methodological work, sort of promote and enhance that. So why Rand? I mean, what makes Rand unique, or why have I been at Rand? You could ask, a fair question for so long. It's a unique collection of researchers which are focused on the critical issues of our time. I'm a big news junkie, and the fact that I get to work on something that feels relevant, feels like impactful is important. And one very big difference in terms of Rand versus anything in academia, I'm not claiming we're academia, but even a school of public health, which is closest to my job description. One big difference is impact is not measured just in terms of manuscripts, grant funding, etc. It's in terms of also briefings. Impact is much more like, if I can do a lot of blogs, or I can speak on the Hill and have impact, that's really important. It's also a Center for Education and Training in Policy Analysis. I should explain that this was not part of my job description. I'm not required to teach at the Pardee Rand Graduate School, but it is an option. The school is based in Santa Monica, but there are inter-office collaborations where you may be able to sit in Pittsburgh and teach in Santa Monica. This I'm not sure who I borrowed it from. It's not a university, it's not a management consulting, but it feels like we do work that's somewhat like both. I borrowed this off somebody. It's not a very good sentence or quote. Amazing culture of mentoring and growing new talent. I do think there's a huge culture of mentoring, which is partly why I think I was successful. As a new graduate student, I personally feel like I needed a lot of mentoring. I could have done well probably in a postdoc, but at Rand, I was able to get that mentoring from other PhD statisticians in particular, as well as in the projects, the principal investigators I work with. We do have a new CEO who comes with a background, who comes from Georgetown, where he set up a center in national security, focusing on the role of artificial intelligence in national security. So he's very excited about the use of AI and both technology and governance around AI. That's one of his strategic priorities. He has this 5 main priorities he set up, including technology and governance, AI, as well as climate change. That's a big focus for him. At Rand, I feel like it's a growing center, climate resilience, but there's more work to do. So to transition, I showed you this big kind of pie chart with many disciplines. You'll see statistics group is just a small part of it, but it's a very strong part of our group. We work across Rand. There are many divisions, like I work in social and economic well-being. There's healthcare, which can be costs, access, quality of care. So healthcare is a big division. There's education. There is all of the security and federally funded centers like Project Air Force. There's Army and Arroyo. There's National Security Division. There's also Homeland Security Operations and Administrations. So the statisticians, how they work is we are a disciplinary group, but we are spread across these many divisions that Rand is consisted of. Established in 1976, today we are 24 people strong. We are growing right now. We had some attrition. Through COVID, I think it led to people soul searching. They landed in great positions. We lost one to Google. We lost one to LinkedIn. We lost one to a tenured position at UT Data Science, but we are growing. For that reason, this year has been an aggressive hiring year for us. We are 12 PhDs, 12 master's analysts, and our quantitative RAs, although we don't directly hire them, there's a whole layer of research assistants that assist with different projects, different disciplinary. They might be coming in as a health RA or an education RA, but there is a track that's for quantitative RAs, and there are a couple with bachelors in statistics. We also hire interns each year, anywhere from 1 to 3, and I'll talk about it a little bit. They're called summer associates. So I added this slide when I saw what people were providing, and I felt like I wasn't doing enough but motivating in terms of the work we do. Here are a few examples of current work done by statisticians. One package that's been really popular is Twang for the maybe last 10 years. It was developed as a way of disseminating and as well as creating software for causal modeling of observational data through estimation and evaluation of propensity score weight. So this is a RAND product, and this one has been very popular in use of multiple sort of disciplines, like be it prevention, substance use, anywhere you have observational data that is non-experimental data. So this is by a colleague of ours, Beth Ann Griffin, who worked with multiple statisticians. So this has been quite statistician heavy. I worked on a project. This is probably one of my biggest high impact projects, I would say, at RAND, to address the issue of sexual assault and harassment in the armed services. And one of my achievements that I was very proud of is to come up with a way to minimize non-response bias using high dimensional administrative, that is military data, to derive non-response weights. And we came up with an original approach using sort of boosting methods and using all of this data that's available at multi-levels, meaning individual, career, contextual, where they're posted and what are the circumstances of their environment. And we came up with a new approach called outcome optimized weighting. This is available through a RAND report where we published all of our non-response methods. Why was this important? It's because one of the challenges of serving military personnel is they are a heavily surveyed population, and the response rates, not unlike the civilian population of the US, the response rates aren't great. So when the Department of Defense did initial rounds of the survey, one of easy critique to leverage was, well, your response rates are so low, why should we trust your data? So then DOD and White House issued sort of a requirement to have an independent, unbiased agency come into the assessment, and RAND was hired. And this is likely my highest profile study that I've done because the results went all the way to the White House. I didn't get to brief DOD, the leadership, but I did work on this team as a lead statistician. There are colleagues who do microsimulation, Bayesian versus empirical calibration of microsimulation models with applications to oncology. There's been some application to the growth of dementia in the US. There is a colleague that has an entire industry with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid on the measurement of patient satisfaction. There's a lot of psychometrics involved, and interestingly, he has a background in psychology with a PhD in stats. Another colleague that's doing a lot of work in Homeland Security is working on novel synthetic control methods. Some of that has been used in the drug use markets, apparently in our drug policy work. So those are some examples of work statisticians may do. You may notice it's a little bit PhD centric because that's my training, but the master's statisticians do some very interesting work, but I think a lot more of the work is in terms of implementation, programming, being willing to learn new methods. And I certainly need to add a slide on that. So apologies for that. So now I'm going to transition a little bit to what skills are needed and maybe just some broad skills for career progress for graduate students. So a little bit about the information about our PhD position. What are we looking for in candidates? One is the ability to conduct statistical research. Even though you're often coming up with practical solutions, you'll find that when you really touch real data, no model cleanly fits that data is the problem of pragmatic sort of research. You almost always have to tweak. Either your data is not well behaved, it's certainly not Gaussian, it's got long tails, it's got sparseness, it's got many levels, not enough measurements, doing randomized block, but not enough schools signed on to participate. Pragmatic research does not align with textbook models. That's the problem. So you have to be able to conduct statistical research. You have to be able to improvise on the go. And I kid you not, this is almost every week in my life. I thought I'd get bored at some point, but I'm still being challenged. So that's kind of interesting to me. We'll see how long it goes. Depth and breadth of technical expertise. By signing on to RAND, you're almost certainly signing on to be a generalist. Like I've worked in areas like non-observational data, which was not my expertise. I've done some work in event history analysis with demography, which which is like survival analysis for discrete data, but it was not in my expertise. So I had to learn about it. So you have to have some breadth for sure. You have to be, when you start up, you are very much a generalist. Over time, you specialize. So mine still remains as missing data, but have acquired a lot of expertise in survey research. You have to be motivated by the policy problems and applied work. If you wanted to do methods, I would say it's probably not a great fit for you. There are far better opportunities in academia and elsewhere for that. But you have to be excited about your work, about the applications and the policy. No one's going to tell you to stick with health policy or education. You do get to move around, which is great, but you have to be excited about your day-to-day work. Very strong communication skills, I would say, because you have to communicate with your team members. You have to communicate often when you give these briefings. You have to have strong communication skills because you're often not talking to another statistician. You're often talking to a non-statistician. And then you have to be organized and flexible. You have to work across multiple projects and topic areas at the same time. For example, I'm working in HIV interventions, often cluster randomized trials with some challenges in design. I'm working in measuring adherence, which has challenges, adherence to HIV meds. But another part of my area is program evaluation, looking at Medicaid policies and their effectiveness at the state level, which is very different methods. And then there's another part, which is the built environment. What happens when you transform the neighborhood, like green space, put a supermarket in a food desert? What happens to population and outcomes? So that just means that I have to be able to effectively organize my time, week, month to work on multiple projects and topic areas. As far as information about the MS position, some of my analysts help fill this. And honestly, they'd be better points of contact for you. You have to be able to design as well as implement statistical methods using multiple programming platforms. You have to have a passion to learn and implement novel methods. So the focus is far more on implementation. Sometimes you're working with a PhD statistician, sometimes you're not. One particular area at RAND that there's a lot of MS statisticians that are doing extensive programming and new methods is in provider profiling for Medicare. So quality of care basically is a big area. We have multiple MS analysts working in this area. Strong communication skills. Our MS analysts are often doing the tables, the visuals, the graphics for reports. So sometimes you're producing dashboards like for COVID. Again, this flexibility and high level of organization, extremely organized people I find. And in an MS position, sometimes I think programming and implementation can take even more time than advising. So you have to be really, really good manager of your time. The summer associate program is something I was told to disseminate a little information about. It's open to graduate students, second year or later. Typically, many are PhD students. Maybe some master's students apply. I'm not sure. I've only worked with PhD graduates. We get several hundred applications each year. This is for the summer, 40 to 50 hires each year. Mind you, these hires, the selection process is going to match the summer associate with mentors and projects based on your skills, interest, and expertise. So if a project has, maybe they're doing hierarchical modeling and they have a need for somebody working in hierarchical modeling, then, we might take on a statistician that's working in multi-level models or working on maybe intensive longitudinal data or something like that. So the mix of projects every year is different, which is why we might be looking for a slightly different skill set, but it's always a good idea to apply if you want to learn about RAND, find out if it is for you. And summer associates work on active projects. That means grants and projects that are funded in this cycle or this summer would be able to take on a summer associates because they are paying the salary of summer associates. A career path for statisticians and analysts at RAND, there are promotions. If for PhD, you start at associate, full, and senior rank. I am a senior and I've been a senior a while now. Master's level, it's 1 through 5 based on technical competence, level to lead. At some point, you become a master's analyst who's leading an entire product or project, all of the software and coding, maybe doing quality assurance. So you're more a leader. So you're more at a level 4 because you're overseeing and mentoring junior programmers and statisticians. By the way, we do have a separate programming group at RAND called the Research Programming Group. So there's a statistics group, but there's also an RPG, a research programming group that may employ statisticians and computer scientists. Statisticians are an integral part of projects, which I mentioned are invariably interdisciplinary, but they often advance to leadership roles. So you may start off being a statistician or biostatistician, taking a technical role, but you could advance to a management role where you're in charge of all the deliverables, meeting the client, etc. We do have a distinguished chair in statistics. Mark Elliott is our current distinguished chair. His expertise is in measurement of patient satisfaction, which he does a lot of work with in the Medicare sort of realm. And there are management opportunities along the way. One of our statisticians, Claude Siddoji, is an associate director for one of our departments, which is economics, statistics, and sociology. So the statistics group sits under ESS. That's the department we sit under. Mind you, all of this is well documented on our website. So I'm not telling you anything new except maybe highlights. So now I'd like to end with this. What are some general advice that I would give myself as a graduate student or looking back? I would say get a well-rounded education. You're not always sure where you want to go. So I think as a graduate student, you're still growing. And even through your career, you'll be growing. You may not stay at your first job, although it seems like at least two of the three of the speakers today sort of are at their positions they started at. So I would advise on getting a well-rounded education, try different electives and courses. I think especially for statistical and technical students, soft skills are really important in the market. Writing, speaking, take opportunities. For example, at Penn State, we had a seminar club organized by graduate students presenting to graduate students. So the more you do something, the better you get at it. So if you want to blog, have a blog. There are statisticians doing data journalism today, meaning a lot of writing and analytics. So writing and speaking, I think if you cannot communicate your message clearly, then the message is lost. So you're going to have to develop soft skills along the way and get more confidence in it and practice, practice, practice. I would suggest gaining experience in the form of internships, consulting. We had a statistics consulting lab at RAND, and I quickly learned that I liked consulting. So you could find out, are you more a methodological researcher, a consultant at heart, interdisciplinary? What is it that feeds your passion, right? If you're going to apply to an organization, you have time to learn about it. You can read reports or what they work on. You can speak to people. You can find people at conferences from that organization, look up websites. I think do your homework. If this is somewhere you're going to give your time and passion to, you need to learn, research the organization, and people are always willing professionals. I think we are good mentors at heart. Statisticians are very generous, I find. Grow your professional network, join a local ASA chapter or a section because you learn a lot. I'm a member of the health policy statistics section, and honestly, my career has benefited so much from being a member of that section and being mentored by other health policy giants, because that's been my area. And finally, easier said than done, but find a job that challenges you, find your passion, and don't be afraid, I think, to change jobs. I know I've been afraid, or for work-life balance, RAND has given me a lot of flexibility. So I've stayed with it through the years where I've, raised a family and grown my career. But ultimately, you also want a job that challenges you while you find work-life balance. So I say, find your passion. And few FAQs I think I noticed at the NIST. Are we hiring? Our current cycle is closed, but next applications will be this fall for PhDs, especially, and masters, although we tend to recruit. We had some attrition through COVID, and so we have been recruiting. This spring, we recruited our master's analysts. So bottom line, current cycle is closed, but keep your eye out. There'll be more postings for PhDs for sure in the fall, and for masters as well. The summer associate program is our internship program. There'll be 1 to 3 hires this year. This year's application again is closed. Next one is fall 2023, and citizenship is not a requirement. So a few links, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions and return it to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for the very lovely presentation. Follow up, we have questions for you, Bonnie. There's an audience asking if RAND hire PhD prepared nurses.
I'm sorry, what is the question?
They were asking if let's say nurses, well, somebody has a nursing background, and I guess assume that's pursuing PhD.
Yeah, so
Hired, yeah.
I did work with somebody who now actually has gone to the University of Pittsburgh, for the person that asked the question, he had a degree in nursing, but he was doing more health policy because, as you know, there's a lot of issues around workforce, retention, shortage, how you grow certain sectors of, right, healthcare, workforce. So workforce is a really hot topic in health policy. And I did work with PhD in nursing in this area, except he's gone on to University of Pittsburgh now. So I imagine in the healthcare policy, there would be opportunities. I just don't do those hires.
Great. Also at RAND, do you guys have any programs that will fund further educations for employees working at RAND?
There is some tuition reimbursement. I don't know if it's as generous as private sector. Like when Jonathan talked about Fidelity, it made me want to switch over. Every 2 weeks, having a date for professional development sounded amazing. I think in general, if I had to be honest, it's been harder to have professional development because we are purely soft money funded. Like my grants will pay for my conferences, you know, but having like a company-wide sort of day of has been tougher, I would say, in the soft money environment. But that said, there's a tuition reimbursement policy.
Right. Yeah, and the audience can look in the chat. Instacart and Fidelity also answer these questions, and they have good funding for these opportunities if they want to pursue. And the questions, I'm glad that Anita asked these questions. The question for all the speakers is that, do you guys hire F1 students or international students? And do you have any sponsorship opportunity for international students? Does anybody want to start with that?
I'll go for it. The short answer is yes. I was hired as an international student. I am from India. I'm still an Indian citizen. Don't ask me why, but it's been important for me to still stay attached to my home country. But yeah, RAND sponsored me, and it's a slow process. I feel for you, but my sense is there's a real mix of on the supply side, real mix. I mean, there's a very successful, hardworking, thriving, brilliant international community in statistics and data science, and organizations are just going to have to sponsor us. And RAND does. So citizenship is not a requirement. And so at least they sponsored me. I was able to hire my own lawyer. They paid for it at the time. So if you were specifically interested, reach out to me and I can find out. But I know we've had foreign students in the group.
Great.
I would just add the same. We have many people who have become full-time employees who are sponsored. I guess I would just say international students are welcome to apply to any of our openings. Just keep in mind that not all openings are going to be able to accept sponsorships. Is kind of what it comes down to. Apply. That's my advice.
And my answer is I don't know, but I'll try to find out.
That's fine. And I remember Tim said that Instacart does offer remote positions. Does RAND and Fidelity also offer remote or hybrid? How's it like right now at the companies?
I can go first, Jonathan. So the answer is yes. I think one reason I've stayed at RAND, for some of you, I have a lot of friends, at least on the panel. I see I've been all over the map with my spouse's job. I started in Santa Monica, went to New Jersey, then I went to Nashville. Like, people can't keep track of where I am. Today I'm in the Bay Area. But that just means, like, RAND at a time, like, embrace the fact that, especially for women, we have a high proportion of women in the organization, that sometimes you can be remote and keep your job. Sometimes you can't. Fact is, like Jonathan, like even when you caveated, this was true for Rand. Like if you're a foreign student, there's classified work that I can't do in intelligence, or there's seminars I cannot attend because they need clearance or you have to have clearance for classified material. But in terms of location, it has been very flexible. And frankly, like a lot of companies in the Bay Area, tech companies that surround me where I live, it's been hard to get people to return to the organization, even though there used to be a thriving culture. I loved being in the offices because, people are nice, they're interesting. Sometimes I can learn about Asia Pacific policy, and, that's where I'm from and I don't work in. So it was always a joy to be in the building. But we're finding that it's been hard to get people to return. People have appreciated the benefits of work-life balance and the power of being able to work remotely. So Rand is certainly not insisting people return to the office, but it's encouraged and our offices are open. So when people start, maybe one thing I'll add again to be very clear, we ideally would like them to be at one of the offices, because to get embedded in teams or to learn from other people, we're finding the in-person component, even starting with other new hires, can be a big benefit. And sometimes if you start purely remotely, people can get lost in the Ethernet, especially people that don't know how to ask for help. So especially starting up, it's encouraged. And then if you want to follow my model and go across the country, not yet international, just I've been going globally or nationally, moving around, it would be supported. So after several years of being at Rand, you could go remote, but I really do try to go to Santa Monica once a month because I think it's very important to be connected to the organization, to really believe in the principles, be kind of on par with what's happening.
Does Jonathan want to add something to that?
Yeah, sure. This is about remote working. So
Yeah.
it's about, yeah. So it's interesting. So when I started a long time ago, we worked in the office for a long time. It was great. I love working in the office. And then we had, of course, the pandemic, and everybody was remote for 2+ years, and we worked at home, and I love working at home. And now Fidelity is moving towards something called dynamic working. And right now the policy is that, we spend a week together in the office. And then 3 weeks is flexible. You can go to the office as much as you want, but if you need the flexibility, you want to work from home, that's currently how it works right now. It seems like it's reasonable, and it seems to be working for most people.
Right. Thank you so much. And Tim, there's an audience asking, what are the location? Where are the locations for Instacart? The office. Are you?
The two big locations are San Francisco and Toronto. The official name of the company is Maple Bear, maple syrup from California, and Bear, California Bear. There are other offices like New York. I'm in Seattle. There was an office pre-COVID. There's not currently. We may get one. Generally, people can work from home, but for people who live near an office, they're encouraged to come in 1 day a week. Each team has a particular day that people are encouraged to come in locally, so that people are coming in the same day to see other people. I'll second Bonnie's suggestion that particularly when you're new, it's good to live near an office if it's a company where a lot of people are going in, to get to know people. Once you get to know people, then you can work more effective remotely, but initially it is good to work in an office.
Right. Because I'm currently on the job market too, and I've talked to several employers, and they do require new hire to be in the office for the first few years, and then if you decide to work remotely, then that's fine for them too. But I do agree that not a lot of people want to return to the office since the pandemic, because of the great flexibility working from home. I do see that we answers all the questions in the Q&A. Unless the audience have more questions, we can wait a few minutes if there are any question popping up. But oh, right, there's a questions in the audience that's very interesting. And Tim already answered that question. Is about referrals. do referrals matter when you apply for a job?
So I'll give the Instacart answer first. Referrals do matter. If somebody knows you, knows your work, can say something about that work, that counts for a lot. There are also what I'll call just leads. So if you contact me on LinkedIn and ask me to refer you, I can do that, but I don't really know you. It doesn't really count for that much. Similarly, if you apply using the link on my page, advice for people interested in applying, that gets tied to me, but it won't count for much. I will say you found that link because you attended the NIST webinar. That'll say a little bit about you, but it won't count for much.
Right.
Can you explain what you interpret as referrals? Does it mean that somebody knows me and said, can you consider my student? Is that what referrals means?
That's a very close referral, I would say, because you know somebody, and but I guess this is just very general questions. Let's say I apply for a job, and they will ask the questions to doesn't really refer you, like that, then doesn't matter or not. And based on what Tim said, it does matter only if that person you ask for referral know you, right? So does that also matter at RAND too, or?
I think that's such, yeah, I get it now. I agree with what Tim said. This year, a lot of people said that I referred them and I didn't recognize them. So then it was hard to endorse because we get asked, you know, did you refer this person? But the other part I was thinking of that really matters to me personally and to our group, I feel like, is when people take the time to do their homework, they reach out and maybe they're working in missing data or you know, they're from Penn State and they reach out and they want to really learn about my work. It tells me the person kind of knows what they're getting into a little more, especially maybe because I do work in an organization that it has some, you know, one-offs about it, the nature of the work. Many people who actually even get hired don't exactly know how you get into something called the internal labor market, etc. So if a person takes time to kind of read up, maybe write and say, you know, I'd like to be able to learn a little more about the organization, or just shows up at a conference, you know, and talks to you and shows interest, I think that kind of FaceTime does help because you have an idea about this person's interest. And it's in addition to the application, because sometimes when you have a lot of applicants, you know, I feel like they're a little more interested. But that said, the review is independent of that consideration, like whether somebody got a referral or not. That doesn't matter when the packets are being screened. Each packet is given a full-on assessment by a committee.
Right. Does Instacart and Fidelity Investment have healthcare research positions? I know at RAND we do some sort of research and it's healthcare related to because HIV and
it's huge. There's a big health policy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of our divisions. Yes.
What about Fidelity Investment?
I actually don't know off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to look. I know we do and have invested in things adjacent to health. Like we had a healthcare marketplace for a few years at Fidelity, and we have health and welfare benefits, things like that. So it's possible. I'd have to look.
Right. And the audience have all the information from regarding the speakers. So I guess they can reach out to you for more questions. But I don't see any more questions from the audience. This section will be is recorded and will be uploaded to on the website of NIST. So the audience can definitely be referring to the recording if they want to rewatch or miss a part of the sessions.
I see two more questions at the end.
Right,
Do you?
right. Yeah, that's the side too. Somebody asked, he'll be graduating with a master in applied statistics from Cornell in May 2023. And they don't have any work experience before that, so does that matter a lot? And is it required when they apply for a job?
This is generally to all of us.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if they're applying for a job and they just finished their degree, that happens all the time. You have to start somewhere, and no, please apply. I would assume this is true for Rand and Instacart too.
Right. Because I know some students from master programs, they don't get a lot of experience, like they don't have the chance to like do a lot of internships because the program is too short. If they're lucky, they can get the summer internship, but some of them don't, they just TA or whatever, right? So if that's okay for them to apply for the positions.
It is not a requirement, work experience, yeah.
And talk about experience also. So let's say if do you guys require internship from like companies, or research assistantship are enough for a PhD student?
No requirements for us.
No industry experience.
No, some graduate students go right through. You know, they might have, I think when you say research assistantship, maybe with the department or a
You're right.
teaching assistantship, yeah. I think that was me, actually. I had worked between undergrad and master's, but I had a research and teaching assistantship just within Penn State.
Right. And there's another questions asking about GIS software. I wonder if any of your companies use GIS software, and will that experience be useful when they apply?
I haven't heard of it being used, but I could see some ways in which it might be useful.
Yeah. Sorry, I have the questions open. I want to say, big fan of GIS. I've been very interested in spatial statistics and geography. I work with a geographer. There may not be a ton of geographers at RAND. Sorry, I don't know the answer to how many geographers or people doing geography and analytics, but I do work with an urban planner where I am because, you know, we're doing this built environment work. And one of the questions often is, does proximity matter? Because the argument with the food deserts work is you live in an area which is underserved. And so if this was part of the Michelle Obama initiative, if you move and a healthy food financing initiative, which was a policy to bring food to underserved communities, whether moving groceries into that neighborhood helps or not. So, you know, you could imagine distance or proximity being is what you're modifying or what you're acting on, right? You're reducing distance or proximity. So in this particular NIH funded, National Institutes of Health funded study, that was a key consideration. So, you know, I work with an urban planner who does GIS for me. And I value this contribution. The other part is this person and we work very much hand in hand because he's a geographer and he has a wonderful idea of space and how that can influence. The second part I would say is we have a research programming group. So somebody with perhaps more of a non-statistician, like an urban planner with a GIS skill who wants to do a lot of GIS would likely apply to the research programming group, meaning you're programming lots of like maybe location data for different studies and maybe getting really good at it. But there is a separate but affiliated group within RAND called research programming. So yeah, I think that's great. I think GIS data is more data, valuable data.
I'd like to follow up on the comment about food deserts. Instacart is all about food. And the charitable initiatives that Instacart does are related to food. A lot of our other initiatives are related to food, in particular for low-income people. For people paying with SNAP, BITA, they can order through Instacart, reduce the fees. So we try to provide food for people who are in food deserts at a reasonable cost. Now, I'm in a book group at Instacart where we read books related to diversity. One of the books we read was about food, what people eat, and the woman who wrote the book had sort of embedded herself in a number of low-income families and moderate and high-income families to find out what they were eating and why. She found that for low-income families, it was not so much that they were in a food desert, but they were busy. They had to go to the grocery store. They took their kids. The kids wanted certain foods, or the kids would just want quick foods, not the healthy foods. One nice thing about ordering through Instacart is that they can order and get the healthy foods without their kids pressuring them to order the snacks and the candies.
I need to do more of that, it sounds like, Tim. I think everything you said really resonates because we didn't find proximity mattered, you know, even though there was a lot of money put into it. It was a policy that didn't bear out or have the effects, you know, that they suggested. And then the second part is that's something we've been interested in, especially through COVID. We have a slightly more middle to upper ages kind of sample, is looking at how much are they leveraging kind of delivery services, because that could be a big help to people that are not in the best of health, maybe not going out of the house so much, you know. So that's really interesting.
And I guess we have the last question for Michelle, again about remote working or flexibilities. And the speakers already mentioned that it really depends on the position and the company too, but they would recommend that in the first few years that you should come in for in-person office work, and then later on maybe you can talk to your manager and everything about remote working. But working remotely abroad, is that like a thing at Rand or Fidelity or Instacart?
You can work remotely abroad for a while. To do it more permanently might depend on the tax status of the particular company, and you'd have to talk to our personnel department about it.
I guess I would also add to that, you know, Fidelity is a global company in a sense. We have offices in Ireland and in India and Germany and all, like, the different places throughout the company too. So, you know, I talked about career mobility in my presentation earlier. I mean, some of the people that I've worked with, you know, started off working in a different country and then they moved over to the United States, and I'm sure it goes the other way too. So I think there is opportunity to work abroad. It just might be through, you know, different mechanisms, like maybe applying for a position that's in a different country for the same, you know, company, of course.
We've had a colleague whose husband is in the State Department, and so she comes to Washington, D.C. and then moves abroad. So I guess that would be somebody working from abroad for us. The fact is how long does that arrangement work? So Rand is a little bit where you are your own agent, meaning we call it something such as an internal labor market, meaning you're getting on teams, you're working on studies that people come up to you and say, oh, you have an expertise in this area. Would you like to join our team? And if you can keep that sort of a relationship going from abroad, hours can be a real challenge, as you know, like when someone's in Japan and the studies in Santa Monica, the hour difference is immense, or even if the studies in Pittsburgh, right? Huge. So if you think you can make it work, then Rand would consider it. They likely would require you to be in the office for the first few years, but it's tough. I've been really impressed by the work ethic of this colleague who's been super successful, about how she blocks out, you know, many evenings of the week and kind of switches to opposite schedules, weekdays and weekends, with a lot of organization. But it's not easy. But it's going to be an option for sure if this person can keep up with their teams and meetings, etc.
Right. Well, thank you so much for very insightful advice. And I think the time's almost up. So again, just a reminder that this sessions is recorded and will be uploaded on the NIST website. So any of the audience want to rewatch the webinar please feel free to check back on the NIST website. And thank you so much to our speakers for your time to share your experience and advice to our newly or incoming employees. I guess that this will conclude our webinar for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for moderating.
Thank you.
Thank you.